On this episode of On Tap, we meet a brewing pioneer in Northeast Minneapolis. And no matter the season, the beer is always good at bad weather. Plus, we discover what it takes to be one of the top 100 beer bars in America. Welcome to another episode of On Tap. I'm Ben Hale, and I'm hanging out today in the Seven Corners area of Minneapolis, just outside of downtown, and I'm here at the Republic, which is one of the top 100 beer bars in all of America. And I'm drinking a Todd the Axeman by Surly, which is always fantastic. Well, we're gonna head out to our first brewery of this episode, and that's Indeed, where in just 5 short years, they've become one of the 5 largest breweries in Minnesota.
I started waiting tables at a brew pub, and at that brew pub I was just slinging beers, and I was homebrewing at the same time. I'd been homebrewing for a few years and really enjoyed craft beer and was really interested in it, but had no idea that I would ever try to make anything of a career out of it.
You know, my business partner Tom and I homebrewed for a long time together. He lived down the street from me in St. Paul, so we were homebrewing, and you know, when you're homebrewing, you talk about a lot of ideas, and one of those ideas was a brew pub.
And there weren't a lot of local breweries that were producing craft beer and packaging the beer. I mean, at the time, tap rooms weren't allowed. And so, yeah, we kind of looked around and we just thought we saw opportunity and an opening for a brewery like Indeed.
How does the idea become reality?
Yeah, there's like this weird point where you're planning it and you're talking about it and you start to write things down, and then at some point along the way you convince an investor to cut us a check. And then that check went into a bank account, and then we found other investors who were interested, and then once we had them, we found a bank that was interested. And then all of a sudden we had this cash in a bank account, and then the first check got cut. I think it's kind of like then when you start to actually build the brewery that it becomes, you know, a reality, that it becomes, at that point there's really no stopping it. You start to roll down that hill, and you only pick up speed as you go along. So,
What was the process like to find this space? What led you here?
we were actually just about to get into a space nearby here, and a fellow brewer emailed us a link to this space that had become available. And we came over here and looked at it and walked in and thought, oh gosh, the ceilings are too low because we really need ceiling height. And the building was a real mess at the time as well. But as we walked through the building, went to the back, and there was higher ceiling space that would work. And at the time, at that point too, the taproom law had changed and passed. But really, Northeast it wasn't necessarily intentional at the time. There were no breweries here. I mean, we were really the first brewery in Northeast, and it was kind of this cool combination of the right kind of building with the right ceiling heights, the right rental rates, the right kind of neighbors who supported the idea of having a brewery, and the right zoning, and just kind of the right look and feel as well.
When this tap room opened up, it was the first tap room to open up in the Twin Cities that had an actual bar type feel to it. A lot of the other tap rooms that had opened up in the past were just kind of wedged into the production facility, so it didn't really have that bar feel that you might expect. We still get people that might show up here and have no idea that there's a brewery back there. I mean, this is like a bar.
How does Indeed fit into the Solar Arts building, do you think? I mean, you guys aren't the only ones in this building.
Yep. There's certainly been a lot of good energy that's been happening between us and the event space on the 3rd floor. If you come here on a Saturday and there's something going on up there and Indeed is busy, this whole building is, you know, sort of breathing, which is really cool. We've also had positive relationships with the artists, and we're always kind of looking for ways to improve, you know, what we can do with them as far as promoting them and us promoting them promoting us. You know, during Art Whirl, we throw a large party in the parking lot, and some people will say that maybe that detracts from the art that's going on during Art Whirl, but we just kind of feel like, gosh, if you bring 6,000 people into this area, a lot of them do trickle upstairs, and it's a great opportunity for artists to sell work or introduce themselves to them. So, but yeah, I mean, we occupy the majority of this building at this point, and so it is you know, the Solar Arts building with a big Indeed presence, and we try to, you know, make the building a welcoming environment for people to come into, and there's obviously lots of activity. I mean, the fact is, in 2008, this place was abandoned and nobody worked here. And now with Indeed, there's 56 people working out of this building, Indeed alone, plus about a dozen artists on the second floor, and then depending on the event space, many more. So we definitely breathe a lot of life into this building. You know.
And now Northeast is just thought of as the place to go if you're going brewery hopping. Did you ever expect that boom to happen around you, and how through that were you guys able to remain, viable and kind of remain that pioneer and that beacon that, well, if you're coming to Northeast, you're probably going to spend some time in Indeed?
In hindsight, it's not very surprising, just because of what Northeast is and those factors that I mentioned earlier. Just the types of buildings, the zoning, the right kind of rental rates, the neighborhood, the feel of it, everything else. So it all really kind of makes sense at the end of the day. As far as like being viable, since these other places have opened, really as far as the tap room goes, it's only seems to have ever increased our tap room business, because people do come on the weekends to go place to place. I love a lot of the breweries up here in Northeast, but I think we're the best. I'm just going to say it. And so I do think that having those other breweries nearby, not that they're bad places, but it's kind of like you go to those places, and if you come to Indeed, I'm pretty sure people settle on Indeed as their favorite, or at least in their top three.
I see the beer drinkers are very fickle, and their taste buds change, or earlier, like I said, a journey, and the journey can take you different places. And you come to Indeed, that journey can take you down 4 different routes. We have your day tripper, we have our seasonal beers, we have our derail beers, then our Wooden Soul series, and barrel aged series. So there is something for everybody. I think it wasn't intent. We weren't trying to hit all those different types of drinkers. It was just something that we wanted to do to help build and diversify our company. Since 2012, we've grown in a lot of ways, by sales, by employees, by business leaders. I didn't know anything about business 5 years ago, and I do know a lot more about business today. I don't know everything, but
in general, I think I've become convinced that we are leaders in Minnesota.
We've grown to the 4th or 5th largest craft brewery in the state in less than 5 years.
The tap room today is a very small portion of our overall business. It's a very important part of our business, but the majority of our growth is out there. And one thing I've always noticed is that in the first 6 months of Indeed or year of Indeed, it seemed like everybody was having their first Indeed beer here at the tap room. It was the first place they'd ever had it, this first place they'd ever seen us or tried us. Maybe they heard about it. And that caused a lot of organic growth outside of the brewery, where people were coming in the tap room and having their first experience. And if it was a positive one, they were going out to their local bar, restaurant, or liquor store and saying, hey, can you get this Indeed beer? And then our phone started to ring here, which propelled kind of our organic growth in the beginning. And today it's totally the opposite. Now it's most people probably have their first Indeed beer at a bar, a restaurant, or maybe in their buddy's backyard. And then if they like it, if they have a good experience, they say, well, where is this stuff from?
When they leave here, just like aromas can take you places or bring back good experiences, this hopefully was a good experience. And when you're out in the market and you see Indeed, you remember that positive experience, and you hopefully will buy another Indeed beer.
Is very expensive. It's $9, $10, $11 for the 6-pack. And I don't know anybody who is comfortable just burning $10 bills, especially when it's like your weekend money, to have a 6-pack of beer at home. So we've always taken that very seriously, and I think that's why we're doing well. And honestly, I haven't felt the traction of that really starting to happen until really recently. There's been so many new breweries, it's been great, but at the same time, it's hard to differentiate yourselves. But I think our commitment to those things is really starting to pay off recently and now. As people have kind of worked their way through new breweries and tried their beer, gone and visited their tap rooms, I'm just really starting to see that. I'm seeing it in numbers, I'm seeing it in the way people talk about our brewery. It's awesome. It's humbling and great, but that's what we did set out to do. And we set out with a plan to do it, and there were a lot of very intangible things that we hoped would accomplish that, and we're starting to see them. So,
our plan is not to be the biggest. Our plan is to provide a positive work environment for employees, and if being the biggest is part of that, then so be it, but we want to be a good, positive place to work. And we also want to, do it responsibly, because we want to see this business around in 20 and 50 years. So that is more important than being the biggest.
We're really not growing our territory, our distribution territory, much in the near future. We're trying to do as best we can here at home. We're trying to grow in our home market. We're not running off to, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa. That'll probably happen eventually, but there's no timeline. It's all for us about making sure it's the right distribution partner and it's the right market and the beer is wanted. There are a number of breweries in the state, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's all different strokes for different folks, but there are a number of breweries that are half the size of us that distribute in twice as many states as we do. And I feel like it's such a backwards model. We really believe in trying to grow our brewery and only have the beer available like where it's wanted and make sure that it's being sold, because that freshness aspect is so important.
This is a manufacturing business, but we happen to manufacture beer, so that makes it pretty fun.
Thanks to the team at Indeed, and they are the pioneers in Northeast. So next time you're in that area, make sure you stop in for a pint. Well, one of my favorite things to do when I'm at a good bar is to actually sit at the bar, belly up, grab a pint, and have a good conversation with the bartender. Well, we're gonna head across the river now over to St. Paul to Bad Weather Brewing, where they're making good beers no matter the season.
I met Joe through my wife and someone she works with who is Joe's mother-in-law. So they kind of knew that we had the same passions and kind of some of the same ideas. So they set us up on a little blind date, and we came up with Bad Weather Brewing Company, which we started at Lucid as kind of an altering proprietorship agreement. So we went and brewed on their equipment and got to kind of get a feel for the industry and making beer and selling beer in a much smaller footprint out of Lucid. So it was a nice way for us to get ourselves off the ground without having to sink as much capital into it as opening up your own building. So then after a year and a half, we knew that we wanted to keep doing this, and we saw some opportunity to move out to St. Paul and open up our own space, so we pursued that.
We thought maybe 5 years down the road, but within a year we were already starting to look at sites and raise money. Again, the Lucid thing in Minnetonka was phenomenal. Put out 2 beers at a time. We were pretty limited. We really loved the idea of flexing our muscles and showing off different styles of beer. We really craved that interaction directly with customers, something we couldn't do in Minnetonka. Again, went through the distributor to the bars and restaurants. We had interactions at beer fests. Wasn't the same. You've got 10 seconds, if that, to talk to people. So we definitely wanted the taproom piece, just to show off what we can do.
Altogether, once it's a big project to get something like this up and running. But when you're passionate about it and that's what you want to do, it's fun a lot of the time too.
Whenever there was a door that kind of slightly opened, we kicked it down and jumped on any opportunity we could.
Welcome to Bad Weather. Anything I can grab for you right away, or you have any questions at all?
This location was the first site that we actually visited, and no other site that we found matched up to this. I mean, we're 5 blocks from the Xcel Energy Center, close to downtown, but we're kind of like a neighborhood bar now. And then we had this space. That's really what we wanted, some room to grow, and this space just had everything that we wanted. We've got a 20-barrel brew house. Pretty quick, about maybe 6 months into it, we started canning in this facility. Immediately couldn't keep up. Not bragging, we're a small brewery, but we still couldn't keep up with the demand. So right away we had to double our capacity, and the larger tanks you see there are 60 barrels, so we have to brew 3 times to fill those.
It's a pretty versatile brew house. We can brew everything from traditional single infusion mashed ESB to a triple decoction Hefeweizen or Pilsner. It does give us a lot of options to brew whatever we want in the brew house. We've got different sizes of fermenters. We have 20 40 and 60 barrel fermenters, so we can do smaller batch beers for the tap room, but then it allows us to keep up with our product out in the market with our canned supply out in the market, so we can keep our regular beers supplied, but then also do some new stuff here at the tap room. So it kind of gives us a little bit of everything to work with.
We didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into just doing sessions, just doing Belgians, just doing lagers. We'd love to do all of the above, do it well.
We love to kind of mishmash styles and do some kind of fun, funky stuff. We don't generally do a lot of this is your straight IPA, this is your straight Pilsner, this is your straight brown ale. We like to throw stuff we like to drink into a lot of our beers. Like a lot of our beers will have a little bit of rye in it because we love rye beers, even if it's not a predominantly rye beer. Just to kind of add some complexity.
You know, we like to say we make a lot of untethered ales. We haven't done any lagers yet. Those are on the horizon soon here, but we do kind of everything from a traditional, like a blonde ale. We've got an American blonde migration, and then we kind of do things with a twist. We have like our winter seasonal ominous is a double brown ale, and then we add a little Belgian candy sugar to give it a little extra characteristic. Wind Vane is our take on a red IPA, but we add a little bit of rye malt to give it a little extra depth. So we anything goes. We'll do anything we kind of feel like brewing. We've done everything from like a brown ale with blackberries and chocolate. We've done traditional Hefeweizen, Goza. Whatever we kind of feel like brewing and whatever the season is kind of our theme. Hence the name Bad Weather Brewing. We like to brew with the seasons, and it's fun for us to kind of mix it up.
We're big fans of the barrel-aged stuff, which we've experimented with 3 or 4 types now. We've done some kettle souring. We'd love to get more into that. And just to add and show people that there are very different types of beer that you can experience, and keep pushing what we do and what we know about beers.
We want to be known as kind of a fun brewery with kind of a vibrant atmosphere, which is a big part of the tap room, and kind of the art behind us, our branding, just make you feel, kind of feel the mood of the beers you're drinking it. We really try to carry that feeling through to all of our packaging. Our artist, Lucas Glusenkamp, his art is awesome for that because it's kind of very ethereal, like a lot of foreboding art pieces that he puts together for us. And when you look at it, you know, most people will have a reaction to it, and we try to match that a little bit to the beer you're about to put in your mouth.
So we want people to have an excellent time. If they care to know as much as they want about beer, we have the people to explain it. If they just want to have a flight of 4 different styles that are all really good, got that too.
The cool thing about this tap room, it's cool to come here at night when you're walking on West 7th and see the lights on. It's a very inviting atmosphere. It's very relaxed, it's very chill. It's got good acoustics. It's easy to have a conversation in here. Even though we're a fairly large building, high ceilings, it's kind of a warming atmosphere. People just kind of come in and hang out and have a good time. If there's a wild game down the street, it's an easy walk or a shuttle. It's nice, kind of a main pipeline down into downtown St. Paul. So, but that's probably my favorite part is just if you're coming down the street and you see the lights, it just says come in and hang out and have a good time. That's what we're all about. So.
Do you have a favorite recipe that you personally have? This is mine.
The Goza. That's one of my personal favorite styles of beer. It's an older, kind of an ancient style from Germany. It's a sour German wheat beer that's brewed with sea salt and coriander. Quick historically on that beer, where that beer used to be brewed, the water was very high in salinity. So they were trying to figure out what can we brew with this water profile, and that's what they came to be. So I discovered it randomly one day and I fell in love with that style. So that's been my favorite beer we've brewed so far is the Goza.
Probably consistently, it's hard because we brew so many beers. I think we did 41 different beers out of this facility last year, which is a crazy amount of beers. Most of them are full-size batches. For us, like 20 barrel batches, it's a lot of beer. But I always go back to Wind Vane. It's kind of scratches all my itches. It's got a little bit of maltiness without being over the top and too heavy. And then it's got the big citrus, piney, resiny hops to go along with it. And it's just, to my palate, I can drink that at any time and be really happy with it. Whereas a lot of the other beers we do, I'll really want this beer this time of year, and I really want this other beer this other time of year. And it kind of seasonally kind of drink the rest of our beers. But yeah, Windbane, our red IPA, for sure.
A British style beer, an ESB brewed with Earl Grey tea. That's my favorite that we've done. Very easy drinking beer.
To see it come to fruition on brew day, that's my favorite part of the day. The beer itself is the brew day, and then the tasting it throughout the fermentation. New beers are always my favorite. Every day is a new challenge. That's what I really love about brewing in general. It's not kind of the same thing every day. It's different, it's challenging, it's physically challenging, it keeps you on your toes, it's problem solving, it's art, it's science, it's all these different disciplines combined into one day. It's creating something new or creating something that people really like. You know, when I'm here some nights at the tap room and people tell me, hey, we really love your beer, I mean, it's awesome to hear that. So it hits me more here when I'm here with friends. I'll be at at a table and just look out at the tap room, and you know, it's like everybody's drinking the beer that I made, and it's a pretty cool feeling. So it's all about quality beer, and people like the beer, and that's what I want. I want quality product, and I want people to enjoy what we make. So it's cool to see that, you know, happy faces in the tap room, and yeah.
This year we want to really grow that distribution piece, get more cans into liquor stores and more kegs into bars and restaurants, and just keep growing and getting our brand out there. And we have a whole nother side of our building we haven't moved into yet, so we still have quite a bit of room to grow. Yeah, so now that we have a year under our belt and we feel like we're getting the tap room pretty well under control, we just want to just keep growing and get out there in liquor stores and bars and introduce more and more people to what we're doing.
We did release our first kind of barrel-aged bottle release about a month ago. It was a Scottish Wee Heavy aged in port wine and whiskey barrels that we blended. I would love to get more into barrel aging. We've got some plans for that down the road. And someday I hope to really start working on sours. We all love sours here. We just haven't worked it into our rotation or, to be honest, our system or location yet. But that's where I see our next big step is more barrels for sure. So that's kind of the next big project for us.
We've got a lot of fun plans, and you know, when we were in Minnetonka, we kept saying, when we get the tap room open, we'll be set for a little bit. That didn't happen. We thought once we get the cans going, we'll be set for a little bit. No. And we thought when we got the 60 barrels in to double capacity, we'll be good for a few years. There's always something, which is not a complaint. It's amazing that we have that.
Now here's one of my favorite things about Bad Weather, besides the great beer, is they have Turtles in Time, the arcade game, and it was on free play. Awesome. You know what else is awesome? This food in front of us now from the Republic. It's time to learn a little bit more about them and find out what makes them one of the top 100 beer bars in all of America.
I'd been into craft beer and Belgian beer long before I opened this place.
Matty O'Reilly has worked in the food service industry since he was a teenager. He has developed a number of restaurant concepts in the Twin Cities and is always looking to bring a new amenity to a neighborhood. At the Republic, he took an old sports bar and turned it into much more than just another bar on the corner.
You know, we're a craft beer bar, but we really focus on having our food be elevated from the perception of what pubs and sports bars especially, we're not one of those, but what they typically do. So we spend a lot of energy working on having our food be excellent so that we could sell more beer. But then the yin-yang of that is we're this destination craft beer bar with a pretty thoughtful selection of beers that could be the draw too. And then when people decide to eat, they're usually pretty happy. We usually exceed expectations with our food. So I think we're kind of the best of both worlds with a very forward-thinking, you know, beer list, but then we spend a lot of attention, you know, having our food be excellent too. I love our menu right now. We have some, probably one of the most underrated, it's a buttermilk fried chicken sandwich with aioli and homemade pickles and a little spicy slaw on top, but it's just like super delicious. I have to limit myself to like once a week or once a month on that one. We have outstanding poutine, pulled pork, curry gravy, cheese curds, house-cut French fries. That's a champ. And then on the healthier side of that too, we have some really cool like salads with pickled, curried cauliflower and kale and quinoa and beets and just a lot of fresh, delicious ingredients on that side too. So I think we round out a lot of things. It really just depends on what you're looking for.
And while the food is delicious, the beer selection is really the star of the show. And since the Republic opened, picking which beers to feature has become more difficult by the day.
From the day we opened here, which is almost 6 years ago, I think there were close to just 20 breweries in Minnesota, and now there are 110. So those decisions by default have become much more challenging. Just quality over anything, really. And then within that, it gets kind of selective on just having sort of like something for everybody. Right. Like if we have about a dozen or so IPAs on the list, but there typically won't be 2 IPAs on the list that even have the same hop profile. So we try to differentiate within each category really well. We usually have about 10 stouts on the menu, but there'll be 1 milk stout, 1 imperial stout, 1 barrel-aged imperial stout. So we try to diversify within each category really well too. We usually rotate through about 15% of our list, so we make 15 changes about every 3 weeks to a month.
National recognition came to the Republic 4 years ago as Draft Magazine included them in the coveted Top 100 Beer Bars in America listing.
4 years in a row, yeah. The first year was eye-opening. We knew we were up to something pretty cool, but we had no idea that the list even existed until we found out we were on it. So that was a whoa kind of moment for us, that we were like, maybe it's as cool as we might think it is, So, and then once we're on that radar, to really, at least have discussions with people around town, and then to be able to travel and go to some of the other places that are on it, to know that we're in that caliber of like-minded people that has this commitment. It's quite an honor. Like, it's very flattering to be included. We're just happy to be part of the conversation there. But it's pretty competitive out there too. There are a lot of new places, and a lot of people have a very similar and like-minded beer program, and they're all committing to this like craft beer level. So if we could maintain our position, that's amazing. And if not, we had a great 4-year run with a magazine that even just knows we're on the radar. We're just happy that it happened at all.
The Republic is definitely on the radar of craft beer drinkers throughout the Twin Cities. Well, it really is great for us to have one of the best beer bars in the whole country right here in Minneapolis for us to enjoy. It's been a great episode here on Tap. I want to thank the teams from Indeed and Bad Weather and here at the Republic. And I want to thank you for watching another episode of On Tap. Remember, drink good beer and drink it responsibly. Cheers.